So welcome everybody to our Day 3 Bootcamp Employer Panel, and we are absolutely delighted to have such a fantastic panel along today. It's all people who work very closely with the university, and most importantly for you as students and new graduates, they really do, they are working with graduates all the time. They really can give you a lot of sort of insight into the recruitment process, but from the recruiter's perspective. So this is a great opportunity to ask your questions and really sort of get that inside of you. Myself and Lindsay Wilson are going to be sort of hosting today's session. But first of all, just to kick off, just like to introduce our panelists. We have Rebecca Sinclair from EY, Carla Henison from Hymans Robertson, and Owen Pape from CGG. But I'm going to let them now introduce themselves to you. So who would like to kick off? Rebecca, are you okay to start?
Sure, I can start. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Rebecca Sinclair and I work in the student talent team at EY. We work quite closely with your university, but if you haven't heard of us, we are one of the big 4 professional services organisations. And essentially what we do is provide guidance to clients in areas like business, finance and technology. I first joined EY just before I went to university, and I did what was called an advisory scholarship programme in our consulting team, and I returned each summer to work in the technology consulting team. I then completed the graduate training programme once I finished university. I studied down in Exeter and I studied economics. And then once I did the graduate programme in technology, I loved all the recruitment events that I took part in so much that I moved across to the student talent team, which is where I'm based now. So my role is looking at events and ways that we can be engaging with schools and universities, and also supporting students through the application process. I'll give a little bit of an idea in how we recruit, but I imagine we'll probably touch upon some of the questions in a bit more detail. So we recruit based on strengths. So that is something that you're naturally good at, something that you naturally enjoy. And throughout the process, the different stages are designed to draw out your natural strengths and see if they're a good match for us as an organisation and for the particular team that you have applied for. But I'll leave it there and I will hand over to the next panellist.
Carla, are you happy to go next?
Owen, sorry. So my name's Carla, and I am the student recruitment manager at Hymans Robertson. I've been at Hymans for 13.5 years now, so it makes me feel very, very old. And I've seen the firm triple in size really since I started. I started at Hymans. And triple in size by way of we've got different business units now, and when I started we didn't have an Edinburgh office, so we're at just over 1,000 employees now, and when I started we had 370. This year we are celebrating our 100th birthday, so we are an independent firm. We're 100 years old, and we've embraced change and innovation all through that time. So there'll be lots on our website and lots on social media over the next year in relation to our history, our present, and what we're going to be doing in the future. So we work alongside like employers, institutions and trustees, financial services, offering independent pensions, investments and benefits advice. And we also have risk consulting services as well as data and technology solutions. The student programs that we have are our trainee consultant programs, which are our graduates, summer interns for penultimate year students, and we run various insight days as well for all students to come along to, usually at the beginning of the year, February, March time. And like Rebecca at EY, we also recruit on strength.
Thanks very much, Carla. And Owen.
Hi, yeah. So my name's Owen. I work for a company called CGG, which is a French geoscience company. So effectively, anything having to do with applying kind of the hard sciences to the Earth. So we have satellite mapping, geophysics, geology, and we operate in a range of different fields: oil and gas, geothermal, natural hazards, environmental science. So effectively, we're very much a technically focused company, so a scientific company. So my background myself is I've actually been working for CGG for almost 15 years now. I actually got my long service award yesterday. I'd completely forgotten. It's 15 years. It's gone by quickly. So yeah, and I'm actually a geophysicist by background, and a bit like Rebecca, I used to quite enjoy helping out with recruitment and the like, and actually and the STEM activities. We do a lot of STEM outreach. And actually, so an opportunity came up to be seconded to recruitment. So I took that opportunity. So and I've really enjoyed it. It was supposed to be 6 months, and it's been 3 years. So yeah. So in terms of kind of what as I said, I kind of touched on what CGG does, but I guess we as I say, we're very much a scientific company. So obviously the kind of roles that we offer tend to be roles for scientists. So in that sense, there is a kind of our focus is not anyone can do the role. You need to have a certain technical qualifications, but technical qualifications aren't enough. And just like Rebecca and Carla said, it's those other, once you've got the technical qualifications, kind of they let you through the gate, but they open the gate for you. But then it's those other skills, leadership, customer service, teamwork, resilience, etc., that will actually that we then test for. So hopefully that's helpful for you.
Great, thanks. Lindsay, do you have a question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, this has been a really, really unusual 15 months that no one has expected. And you, as a company, have had to react really quickly to these changes and adapt your ways of working. How has that had an effect on your recruitment process, and what sort of changes have you had to make to that in order to respond to these restrictions while maintaining the recruitment of graduates? Will we start with Rebecca? Sorry to put you on the spot, Rebecca.
No problem. So it has had an impact in terms of our recruitment process and also the way we work. So we are a sort of service guidance organisation. So our asset is essentially our people, and we provide guidance to clients. So where you might have used to be on client site, you might have gone up to a client and asked for something, you had to do that virtually. So it was quite a shift for all of our staff to then work from home. But we kind of had to move very quickly overnight. Our CEO set up, we were going to do a working from home practice. And so everyone was geared towards that working from home practice, make sure you've got what you need to work from home. And then before that practice could take place, there was an updated guidance to just fully work from home, and you had a couple of days to get what you need and work from home. So that also meant a quick shift in our recruitment process as well. We previously had the assessment centre in person. We used to have about 130 people come to our assessment centres, a big venue, lots of different activities, and we had about sort of 3 working days to shift that from in person to online, which the assessment centre team did very quickly, very smoothly, and it worked out really well. So that's now how we've been running our assessment centres since then. So we've been running them on Microsoft Teams, and we've set up ways now that there still can be a group exercise and there can still be one-to-one discussions all through Teams. So in a way, it's still enabled those conversations to continue, and it's meant that actually we can do more events and we can think about more ways that we can be giving people a good insight into the company, and without the sort of limitations where you're in person. So we're continuing that now for the foreseeable, and then we're kind of planning for next year what it will look like in person or online.
What do you think the impact has been on graduates who are then having to have, gone to this new way of being recruited, having everything is now online? What about the preparation for all of that? Do you think it's really important that they really understand what this shift means and the different ways that you're measuring in order to really prepare for the different stages of the process?
I think so. In terms of what we're looking for, the strengths we're looking for and what how the assessments run is similar, but it's definitely a shift when you're working virtually, and you don't have that same ease of building rapport that you would have done in person. So even simple things like keeping your attention near the webcam makes a big difference. So we did like drop-in sessions, people who were applying to come and ask questions, and would give guidance, and even things like that, like saying, practice your introduction so that when you're on camera with your interviewer, it doesn't feel quite so strange, and you can then just break the ice at the start. So I think it almost gives a better platform that you can host more webinars, and you can say, come along, learn more. Lots of universities have done more events than they would have done before, because it means a lot more people, it's more accessible to a lot more people. So it's definitely made it easier in that sense, but at the same time, it can be quite isolating for students in particular to work from home or study from home and also do all their assessments from home, all within the same room. And particularly when new graduates join us, they might be studying for their qualification, working, socializing, all in the same space. So it can be hard in that sense. I know the teams have done a lot to provide support to their new graduates, because they can't just lean over to their new manager's desk and say, oh, how do I do this? They're having to reach out online. And if everyone's busy, you have to feel comfortable that they're there to help you. So I know the teams have done a lot with that to say, please reach out, you'll have a buddy, reach out to your buddy, reach out to us, don't feel like you're isolated. We're here to connect with everyone.
That's fantastic. What about yourself, Carla? How has your recruitment process had to shift because of the restrictions over the last 15 months?
The recruitment process itself didn't have that huge a shift, because we moved away from assessment centres about 4 years ago. So we just do our processes, application form, then numerical test, a bespoke situational judgment test, a telephone interview, and then a final strengths-based interview. So the only thing that we really had to shift online was the final interview, which went with Teams. So similar to what Rebecca said, just trying to provide a bit of best practice etiquette at telephone interview. So we're called to final interview, and what to do, and they get kind of a brief sent out to them before the final interview anyhow, on what it's all about, how we assess strengths, and a piece about the virtual interview as well. And the bigger piece of work for us was shifting our program, like our internship program, online. So that was really the first major thing that we had to do was shift our internship program online during the summer. So we did that, and we did that really successfully. It was a lot of hard work, but it was worth it, and we managed to run the 8 weeks. So we managed to just we thought we might have to shorten it, but we managed to give the students the 8 weeks that they had originally been offered. Like Rebecca, for events, we slimmed down. We slimmed down our events. Our events last year, but did more UK-wide one. So we actually found that we got more diverse candidates apply, because anybody around the UK could kind of log in, whereas if you were going to specific universities, then, you were missing out in lots of pockets, because we've got a small team, lots of pockets of talent throughout the UK. So I think that's been a huge plus. Is our attraction, more of our attraction has gone online, and that's helped attract more diverse candidates, or opened the opportunity up to more people, which is good.
It's all these positives that are coming from this situation that we wouldn't have anticipated, like opening up to more, as you said, diverse candidates, and as well from the students' point of view in that preparation. It's all the events that you're able to host now that will give them all of this insight into the organisation and the different opportunities, which is fantastic. What about yourself, Owen, at CGG? How have you managed to adapt?
So from a technical point of view, in terms of actually running the process, we were always recruiting globally for our positions in the UK. So for candidates outside of Europe, they were always having a virtual technical interview. So obviously, as soon as the pandemic came along, we dropped the assessment days, and everyone had the virtual interview. So in that sense, that was straightforward. But the main challenge for us, so actually Carla and Rebecca have touched on quite a few things, so I'm not going to repeat what they're going to say, but the main challenge we had was that, you know, our assessment day, the actual assessment part of it was only about a couple of hours. The rest of the day was spent in getting to know what the job involves, you know, having a chat with people, and also getting to know. So one of the other things that we used to do, which is a bit cheeky, but we would always make sure to invite kind of the other candidates who were there, you know, that they could get to know the people who were applying as well, that they were also quite, you know, there was for instance, a fairly even gender split, that there was, you know, and people from different backgrounds, you know, just to so that the candidates could see who else was applying for the role, who else was in the mix, because, you know, you want people to think, yeah, this is an attractive organisation, and, you know, that's someone really clever. I like that. I like these other people who I'm with, you know. So there was a kind of a little bit of salesmanship going on, but so of course you miss all that when you just got this individual in isolation sitting in their bedroom. So a lot of the stuff we've done since is a lot more kind of insight stuff. So for instance, when they get prior to the final stage interview, I will actually have an MS Teams call with them, just first of all, just to kind of put a human touch to the whole application process, but also so that we can test this and to test the system, also so we can have a proper chat, for maybe an hour about the role, about everything that's involved, give them a chance to ask questions, and then we also give them a chance to speak to a couple of grads as well. So, you know, recent grads, so again, they can get kind of a feel for what it's like and what kind of work graduates are doing. And then we adapted our interview itself so that there was more of a research element. So there was less of the on the spot, you know, you have to adapt to what you're given, you know, to the questions that are posed, and more like, you know, here's in our case, you know, here's a technical paper on a technology or an aspect of physics, geophysics. Go away and research it and talk to us about it when you present, you know, we'll have 10-15 minutes where we'll talk about it in the interview type thing. And the idea behind that as well is that particular, there's a few topics that we choose, but those topics are all things related to the job. So people are actually learning about the job as well as, you know, demonstrating their technical ability. So there was a bit of effort there on that side. And then also we had actually already experimented with kind of pre-onboarding, kind of trying to introduce people before they start the job in previous years, so that, you know, we're kind of trying to create a little community. Partly because there was always this kind of like slight fear, you know, you hire these good people in September and they've still got another whole year to go before they join you, so you kind of want to keep them engaged, you know. So we had we kind of did try to create a bit of a community beforehand, you know, obviously not taking too much time because people have got exams and projects. But so that is also, we've tried to make a bit more of that as well. So I've kind of shared, you know, some simple resources with them and updates, and then we've given them the option of sharing their contact details of other people who've been offered, you know, who've been offered to and hired, who've accepted an offer. So they get to know people they'll be working with, you know. So I know it's a little bit kind of, you know, but it's all about kind of the more personal aspects, you know, and trying to kind of make them feel they're not alone and that we're looking forward to having them, you know.
I think that's really important. I think it's a really important message that you're sending there as well, which is, yes, these different stages throughout the recruitment process are all about the employer trying to understand, are you the right person for this role? But I think that message you're sending as well is it's a two-way process. It's also an opportunity for the students to find out, is this, you know, my fit? Is this where I want to be? Is this going to meet my own requirements as well? So I think that, you know, that is such an important message to be passing through this as well. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the people who, you know, we have quite a low, I guess, what's the word, is it conversion rate, I think is the expression, from when someone applies to the final interview. I think it's like 1%. But there's a reason, and that's not because it's not because people fail in the sense of, you know, that they're not good enough in the sense of technically able, but it's usually that the process is designed to find people who actually fit the job, or at least people who want to, who when they discover more about the job, want to do the job, if you know what I mean. So it's a matchmaking. Sometimes I think we're running dating services, not recruitment, you know. So, yeah.
It might get to that point of swipe left or swipe right. Who knows? I think Sarah has another question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think that's so reassuring for students who are coming into the application process, that that there is a lot of thought going into the sort of candidate experience, and a lot of openness and communication going on. So I think people can feel that it's a little bit faceless and a little bit daunting when they're going into this process. So we really want to reassure our students that there is help there, and it's a positive experience. But I think one of the concerns that quite a lot of students and graduates are raising is that COVID has been so disruptive for them that students coming into their final years of university have missed out on a lot of experiences, perhaps internships, perhaps the opportunity to do some volunteering or some work experience. So what advice do you have for somebody who's feeling a little bit underconfident because of things that they may have missed out on, due to no fault of their own? So Carla, could I ask you that question?
Well, we don't assess, first of all, we don't assess on specifically on work experience. So we don't ask any of that. Specifically, it can obviously come out through students can draw on their skills from any types of work experience they've had, and that doesn't have to be other internships with professional services firms. That could be their part-time job in ASDA. It could be absolutely anything, because technically you're still to work in a team, you're still to communicate, you're still to plan and organise in some way and still be adaptable. So students, can draw from anything that they've done in any point of their lives up until now. And we know that the past year, that students may have had limited skills or limited experience to develop further skills to bring to an interview. But it's probably not as drastic as they may be thinking, because they will have been doing, if a lot of people have part-time jobs or have, then that they're likely to have continued. Even having to move house or whatever else within the pandemic, you have to plan to, so it's really thinking out the box in different situations where you can evidence the skills that we're assessing. And the reason we don't specifically ask in the application form about work experiences is because of unconscious bias and the whole diversity piece. So we didn't want unconscious bias coming into the program, the selection piece, where we were marking people, on where they'd kind of applied, etc., and where they'd worked. So yeah, it's their strengths and how they've used those strengths effectively in the past. And yeah, just thinking out the box and anything that's happened in your life really from in the past year, and how have you planned, how have you worked with somebody, how have you adapted, and your communication skills as well.
Yeah. So the message is very much that you can draw on any of these experiences, but perhaps candidates need to put the work on to really reflect on what it is that they've gained, so that they can articulate that effectively to yourself. So interesting, I think, with the sort of in a more sort of technical field as well, where students may have missed out on some technical experiences. Owen, can you comment on the sort of impact of that at all?
Yeah, so I guess it's a tricky one. So I guess what I would say is that pretty much everyone knows what's happened. So it's not like, I guess one thing I would say to students is, to a certain extent, try not to worry about things you can't control. It's everyone. I mean, this one thing about the pandemic is it's been a complete leveler. Everyone has been in the same boat. So don't focus on these big events. Brexit, COVID, whatever. Focus on the things you can control personally. And so in terms of technical, if you come from a technical background, I guess there are. So first thing I would say. So for instance, in the geosciences, getting internships for starters is incredibly difficult. So no one ever really, and it's actually quite. What most people do is they the way a lot of the curriculum is designed in science in general, so physics, maths, and geology, geophysics, is that there tends to be a number of projects each year. So and that's where we look for people to really talk about to show technical skills, and that's something an experience you should still be able to have. Because just because I've interviewed people who've done all the internships under the sun, but they've don't draw those they've not drawn the correct lessons from them. They kind of it's really about what I would say is that what we look for is when people talk about their projects. First of all, they show good communication skills, good technical communication skills. But also that they make those links, there's parallels between what they've done and what we do, and they don't have to be direct links. It doesn't have to be, the same laws of physics that I've used here apply here. It's more just, it could be just the project management kind of skills. The practicalities? How did you do it? Did you have any? Did you come across any unexpected challenges? How did you cope with them? It's not about. It's kind of almost again kind of slightly soft skills. It's more about the problem solving kind of process, and were you a bit creative? What did you do? Did you actually, and when you tried, and how did you decide which kind of ideas to pursue? So you can make a lot out of your kind of university experience, your projects. In terms of kind of other technical experience, well, great if you can get it. I guess one thing I would say is kind of doing lots of kind of online programming courses won't do any harm, but it doesn't necessarily really add a lot to you unless you can demonstrate you've used that knowledge you've acquired on your studies or on your project. So it's one thing saying I've done all these online learning courses, but in isolation anyone could have done those. But if you go, I did all these because I wanted to. I had this problem in my project, or I wanted to visualize something, some data that my supervisor had given me, or I'd been given in my lecture notes, so I read about. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to see if I can use this programming language to do that. And it was, so it's that kind of, it's not just learning by rote, it's not just knowledge, it's application. That's because in the scientific community, and it's irrelevant of whether it's geophysics or whatever it is, no one comes in ready to do the job, or very, very few people come ready to do the job, because pretty much every scientific kind of company is a specialist company, provides a very specialist niche service. So what you've learned at university, yes, it will give you the fundamentals, but you won't be able to do the job. So the training will come on the job. So it's that, but it's having that. The thing you can't train someone to do is having that kind of general attitude, general approach to problems and things. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Thanks, Owen. I'd really like to bring Rebecca in here actually, because I think I was interested that you yourselves and also Hymans Robertson are drawing on a strengths-based interviewing approach as well. And I guess what Owen was talking about is that ability to sort of draw out or to sort of utilize some of the skills that you've developed and to sort of to demonstrate how they've been helpful. But how does this sort of relate to a strengths-based interview, and how can students what tips have you got for students in sort of drawing on their previous experiences to answer those kinds of questions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you're preparing for interviews, look at the company that you're joining and see how they recruit. So for us, looking at strengths-based recruitment, we're very open about the strengths that we look for, and there's a section on our website that says how to join us, and there's an applications tip section that says what we look for, and it lists out the kind of 10 strengths that we look for, and there's description about what that strength is, and there's a description about how you can be showing that. And then think about your experiences and what you can draw upon, and whether that's previous internships, whether that's previous part-time jobs, whether it's just personal experiences. For example, team working, you can talk about, like Carla mentioned, working in a supermarket, or working at, maybe some volunteering you've done over the last year in your community. You can draw upon the experiences, and you can think about, like Owen said, it's not just about the team did this. Think about how you help towards the the team, what you personally did and how you personally supported everybody else in your team. It's not about saying, yes, I've worked in a team before, tick box. It's about, you know, really utilising that experience and thinking about what transferable skills you've learned from it. You can also be thinking about what else you can do to show your passion. You may not have done an experience before in that particular area, like with us, you know, maybe you haven't done accounting work experience before, and we don't look for that, but you can say, you know, here's what I've done to do my research. I've had a look through your website, I've read some of your articles. You know, if you can find your interviewer's name, you can say, well, I saw you created this knowledge piece, you know, I'm interested in this part of it. And you can really think about what is it about that company, what is it about that particular team that interests you, because ultimately we want people to join us. We want people from different experiences, different backgrounds. Don't want everyone that's gone through the exact same process to join us. But I think really just reflect on your strengths, what you're naturally good at, what you can bring to the team that other people may not be able to, and just focus on what it is that you want to do. What are you motivated by? What do you enjoy doing? I think would be my main advice. And I'd also say, just don't be too hard on yourself. It's been a roller coaster of a year, I think, for everyone, and it's definitely been particularly difficult on those who are at university and at school, I feel like. So you've made it through. That's resilience in itself. And just think about, you know, what is it that you've done yourself? What is it that you made it through? Maybe you faced a challenge and that your group work had to be done online, or your lectures had to be done online, your dissertation had to be done on your own. And just think about how you showed resiliency, how you showed teamwork, and then try and include that in your answers.
Yeah, great. So some really good sort of reassurance there, I think, that all experience counts. And I think if anyone here was attending our session on Monday, it was looking at that sort of skills assessment piece, where you really need to think about, sort of reflect on the experiences you've had so far, and think about what does that demonstrate about you, and that's a really great way to prepare for these processes.
Great. Well, I've got another question for you all. Owen and Carla as well, you both reflected briefly on diversity and inclusion. And Carla, you had mentioned about this unconscious bias throughout the recruitment process. But is there anything that each of your organisations are doing in terms of different initiatives to really tackle the issues round about underrepresentation and, you know, encouraging more diversity and inclusion? Because it's something that is becoming more and more important nowadays. So I'm just interested to find out about how your individual companies are addressing these sorts of issues.
So if you don't mind, I'll speak first. So for us, in terms of diversity, I guess our main challenge is the kind of gender, ratio that you typically have in the sciences. So now our CEO is actually a woman. But even prior to that, we had quite a number of initiatives looking at kind of trying to encourage more, I think, girls into geoscience. I think is what one of them was called, type thing, that we got involved with. But I guess that there's two slightly competing things here. So ultimately, it shouldn't matter who the candidate is in the sense of their background. All that matters is their qualifications. Are they the right good person? Do they meet the criteria? Are they technically qualified? That's the kind of first overarching priority, because you need to have certain technical skills to do the role. But obviously, the reality is we want to at a minimum reflect the existing gender ratio in the sciences, and ideally go for a 50-50 split. So what we ourselves have done is we have done a number of things. So the main thing that we've looked at is attraction. So because we can't really we've done two things actually. That's not true. We've done attraction, and we've also we've done STEM outreach. And on the STEM outreach front, we've done a lot of effort since probably about 2010, where we've consistently fronted female geoscientists, geophysicists at STEM outreach events. We've shown secondary school children and even primary school children female scientists working at a high level in their field. So that's one end of the spectrum. The more initial kind of the more pressing, the immediate kind of thing that we do is we just look at just really being there, making, whenever we present ourselves, okay, we look, if there's more than one of us, we always look to have a 50-50 split, male, female in terms of who's speaking. On our, when we're our online presence, so we've got a Grad Cracker hub. Again, we're careful to show again that kind of even split. When people come in to, for the, when I mentioned that we let people chat to a couple of graduates. Well, for female graduates, for female candidates, we have a couple of female graduates talk to them, and we don't hide the reality. So, we're quite open about the fact that obviously there is a bit of an imbalance in our industry, and everyone, of course, anyone coming from a physics or maths or whatever background is also aware already of that imbalance. They've surrounded, there is that ratio is quite extreme, even if it is improving. So it's just for us, it's just really about just really making it very clear that we're very open, and that we really are encouraging, female talent to apply, and that we're a good place for women to succeed. And I think the last, on that point, we are quite fortunate that we have a lot of kind of talented female geoscientists who have reached quite high levels in the organisation. So we're able to kind of show them, as kind of role models. And one thing we're looking at this year is we're still in early stages, but we're looking at kind of a mentoring program. So it's still very much early stages. It's been something that's been early stages for at least a year, but hopefully this year, with the pandemic kind of delayed things, and then people have been, with remote working, people have been working harder than ever before, I think. But yeah, so that's something we're looking at actively.
That's great. So you've kind of tried to, as you said, tackle it from different angles, really trying to encourage females to recognise that actually, this is a really worthwhile career route for you, and then trying to reflect that within the organisation as well, which is fantastic. You said that those kind of events, getting women into geoscience or girls into geoscience, if you're thinking about going into the primary school, the secondary school, as you were talking about, and so forth, have you seen any impact of those since you started in, was it 2007?
I think it was 2010. Yeah,
2010. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe I was, but 2010. Yeah, well, actually, yeah. So yes and no. So what we have seen actually is we haven't seen anyone direct. We have seen some. We actually have seen some male candidates come forward who saw us at these events. But what we have seen actually is that a lot of female physicists, for instance, they're very involved in, and well, generally female scientists, students are very involved in actual outreach events at universities. There's a big push there. And so the fact that we're doing a lot of outreach like that actually attracts them. So, and then of course we then give them opportunities to continue to do that once they join us. So that actually, in that sense, it's worked indirectly because it attracts people who've already got that kind of interest, that drive to kind of attract more girls, more females into.
Fantastic. Great. What about yourself, Rebecca, EY? What have you been doing to try and address underrepresentation of particular groups?
So there's lots of different initiatives that we do. I'll touch upon some of them, but I know I won't do justice to the full spread. Some of the things that we do pre-application is through working with partnerships. So, for example, we work with an organisation called Upreach, who primarily support candidates from kind of disadvantaged backgrounds, or we work with female-focused organisations like STEM Women, or we work with Black heritage-focused organisations like Young Diverse World Changers. And through that, we can then engage with people from a really wide background and help people to learn more about us, see if it's the right kind of fit for them and for their career journey. We also have things in place throughout the application process, like all of the interviewers do unconscious bias training. We have what we call blind recruitment process. So once you've kind of passed each stage, the person assessing you won't know anything about you. They won't know what school you went to, or your gender, or any disability, or anything like that. And when you come to interview, your interviewer won't know any of your background. They won't know how you performed in other tests, what grades you've got. It's completely up to you what you choose to tell them. So it makes it a lot more of an open application process. And we also do a lot of knowledge sharing in our team. Like we work with we had a workshop last week on stammering and stammering awareness, and people that worked for our organisation that have a stammer or have something along those lines came and talked about how they found the process and what they would like to see from interviewers, what they would like to see from us. So I learned a lot from that. Even some of the people saying, we'd like our group at the assessment centre to know, so that when we're speaking, we're not having to consider that, which I thought was quite interesting to learn from that. So I think the more you learn, the better. And then final thing I'll say is we also have some programmes that are focused on diversity. So we have, with the programmes that we've got, we have first year programmes, which are 1 day insight days. And then we have summer internships and placement years. And then we have graduate programmes. And with the insight days, we've launched a couple of years ago, and it's still going strong. We have women in business and Black heritage in business. And although anyone can apply, you need to be motivated and passionate about those areas. So the majority of people on the women in business are female, and the majority of people on Black heritage in business come from Black heritage. And that is a great way to then sort of feed the future pipeline and find people who are really motivated and passionate about that area that can then continue to grow in those areas for years to come.
Fantastic. And finally, what about at Hymans Robertson, Carla? What's going on there?
So there's a lot going on there, just like and I love this stuff. So I sit in the diversity inclusion group anyhow, so I could talk. Yeah, this is like my hyper focus, I suppose. I could talk all day, but I'll try and be succinct. So, so we for the attraction piece, we Rebecca, we partner with Upreach and the Social Mobility Foundation, and we also partner with another small consultancy who does a lot of our promotion for us, because like all through the UK with non-red brick universities, because we can't physically get there because of our size. And we last year we participated in it was the 100 Black Intern Programme, which is now for next year going to be the 10,000 Black Intern Programme. So we participated. Yeah, they had such a great uptake that they've shifted the goalposts, so there was more, which is amazing. So we do a lot on the attraction front, a lot on the training front as well for assessors, making sure, like Owen said, we've got a diverse assessment panel all the way through. We check that no part of our selection process favours a one group over another group in any of the strands, diversity strands. We've got so much more to do with it, as well. But a lot of it there is that whole societal piece, so it's a kind of students who tend to do well in the role are from a maths kind of science background, that they've got a good aptitude for maths. And also the consultancy piece as well. So the pools we fish in for candidates are about 60-40 male. So we aim for 50-50 as best we can, but that is if the talent comes through and it's more dominated by males, then we won't just take females over them. So we do make sure that we take that kind of equal approach there. So yeah, we've got lots more to do by way of school outreach, lots more to do in everything, but especially in the LGBTQ plus piece as well. That's one of our aims there too.
Fantastic. I think a full range of different activities and approaches that are taking place. But I think what's interesting is that throughout from each of you, it's not as if you said, this is just what we're doing. You're kind of looking and evolving at being dynamic in the approaches that you're taking. And as you said yourself, Carla, there's still so much to learn. So it's still about this area of growth and still trying to do as much as you can to really bring in those candidates that are really going to represent I suppose society as a whole. I think Sarah has another question for you. I know we're getting close to time, but I think there's another one that we're keen for you to add.
So many things we could ask here, but actually one of the students has jumped in with a really sort of sort of current and relevant question around so what is happening with the graduate job market? How are opportunities looking this year, and does this job market this year, is it improving on last year? What's your take on where the market's going to go? A big question, I know.
I think I saw something recently from the ISC, the Institute of Student Employers, who I sit on the steering board there for Scotland and the North, and I haven't managed too many meetings of late, but it's up to like 2/3 of what it was in 2019 by way of numbers. Mm-hmm. However, just really randomly last year, so typical kind of 2020 style, we're taking on more grads starting in September than we've ever done in our in the time I've been here. So and they're planning for the same, if not more, for next year. So our business is growing and diversifying, because of the type of work that we do. If the economy is going well, if whatever happens out there, our clients will still need advice. So we see graduates as key. We don't want to leave a gap one year and then we're caught with a skills gap like further down the line. So so that we might be an anomaly. I don't know, but I'll let Rebecca and Owen give their view as well.
Yeah. Rebecca, also in sort of professional services, where is it a similar picture with you, or are you seeing differences to that?
I would say it's a similar picture. Some areas have kind of peaks and troughs over the last year. Certainly, I know a lot of the business areas are much busier than usual. There's lots of work going on, especially in the tax team, understanding all the different sort of grants and changes to tax that took place. And there's been the restructuring team was quite busy, providing support to industries that massively transformed the way they work, hotel industries that had massive changes. So there was the restructuring part of the business was really busy just supporting clients through that and helping them find ways to stay afloat, essentially. And then there were other areas of the business where it's a lot more some of the sort of mergers and acquisitions, a lot of those kind of areas were less busy. So overall, we've actually, same as Carla, we've increased our intake this year. So our targets have increased this year and I expect they'll increase again for next year. But it's definitely a moving picture in terms of where those kind of roles have landed. But to the question there are new opportunities this year. I think even 2 weeks ago, one of the teams that hadn't recruited this year decided to open roles. So there was a new role posting that came up for the first time throughout the recruitment cycle. So there is, I just say, go and have a look at all different kinds of industries and really find what's out there, because as you can see from today, there are teams that are increasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So despite where we've been for the last 15 months, things are still evolving. And new opportunities are emerging, and I guess that's always the case in the sort of technical sector as well. What would you have to say about that, Owen?
Yeah, so cautious optimism, I guess. So similar. So I guess last year obviously was a bit of a crunch for the world, but we kind of, the business we operate in, it's got quite a long lag. So it's like our projects might be 12 to 18 months long. So we were still had the 2019 work kind of carrying us through, and then we did win work in 2020. So so we actually maintained our kind of graduate our targets for 2020. And then this year we also were kind of steady as she goes, really. But what I would say is that what we are seeing there have been new opportunities created, certainly by the pandemic and so for instance in our business in geoscience. Obviously the main kind of sector, the one that makes the most money outside of mining, is oil and gas. And obviously there's the background kind of challenges of the climate change. But what we've seen is that it's really accelerated a lot of companies' plans in terms of going to different areas, geothermal, renewables, etc. So what we've done is we already had existing groups, but we've actually started to actively recruit for those groups, accelerate our recruitment for those groups, which we hadn't previously. But the way we're going down it, and I wonder if there'll be a few other scientific kind of technical companies doing this, is rather than for these kind of newish kind of growth areas, where rather than kind of traditional graduate kind of program, we're kind of going for 6 to 12 month internships. So then, and with the opportunity to go permanent, depending on how if it works out type thing. And I don't necessarily mean the person working out. I mean the actual business venture kind of works out. So it's a little bit more of a flexible model, maybe a little bit less what's the word, secure, but it's quite exciting. It's kind of having a little startup inside a company. So yes, I think we have turned a corner. So yeah, I think we can be cautiously optimistic about life in general.
Yeah, a good message to end on, I think. And great to hear there's different models of ways of sort of starting your graduate journey as well, like the shorter term internships and so on. And I think that we're definitely seeing more of those sorts of initiatives around. So so students need to be flexible and think quite broadly about sort of the way that they enter their sort of post-graduation journey. So. We just have 1 or 2 minutes left, and I'm just wondering if there are any final sort of top tips that you would give to students entering the recruitment process, anything for managing the online process. If there's any, do you have any suggestions of things that you notice that people could really improve on and work on to succeed in the recruitment process? So perhaps Rebecca, any tips from you?
I'm sure there's lots of tips for me. My main advice would be to research as many different industries as you can. You've heard from 3 today, but just find out as much as you can about different company sizes, different industries, different places to work, and really get a feel for what will work for you. We're all going to be working for a long time and careers will evolve over that time, but think about where it is that you see yourself starting, what kind of grounding do you want? And then research the process as much as you can, find what you can practice. I always say, you cannot practice numerical reasoning test enough. Just keep practicing until you're so comfortable that you can do it in your sleep before you go and sit the test. You don't want to fall down at one of the early online tests before you can really show your strengths. So practice as many tests as you can, practice interviewing yourself, how you'd come across when you're doing an introduction, and just make sure that you're showing your best self during the application process.
Great, thanks. Great tips. Anyone else have some tips for our students?
Just really what Rebecca said, and we find what I've noticed this year is the closer it's got to the closing date, the less kind of effort, the more rushed the application forms seem to have been, so the more sparse the answers are. So it is, if you are going to, if you are putting an application form in, last minute, still make sure you do your research and things, because you'd just be wasting your time if you're not giving it everything at the last minute. And just to be yourselves, really, because I think it was, as Owen had said, we have to be right for you as much as you were right for us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of tips. So yeah, I guess for me, obviously, the first one would be, obviously, if you're applying for kind of a technical role, what I see, one of the most common feelings I see in kind of applicants is they put too much stress on the technical qualifications and not enough on the kind of soft skills. And they don't give those specific examples. They don't give specific examples or evidence in support of those skills. Quite often they just say, they list their strengths, but there's not really any meat to the application proof. You know what I mean? You're kind of looking for those genuine kind of details. It doesn't have to be like really clever stuff, but you kind of want some evidence of where that you want them to give you some evidence to make a case as to why they have those strengths, what the strengths are. And the other thing, I guess, is research. And I know that's what Rebecca and Carla just touched on as well, but research like company technologies, product, services, whatever, but stuff that's actually specific to the role you're actually applying for, because again, I do see students being a little bit, well, maybe not lazy, but not really thinking it through. They apply, say, to a geophysicist role, and they talk about what satellite mapping guys do. It's kind of like, well, yes, I can see you're talking about something that you find interesting. You've spotted and it looks cool and sounds interesting, but actually you're not really showing that you've invested much time researching the actual role you're applying for. So I guess in other sectors it might be, if you're applying to Barclays or whatever, you and to a certain division, you demonstrate your interest in insurance or something. It'd be like talking about retail banking instead, savings, whatever, instead of insurance. So it's just a similar thing. It's those kind of what I'm trying to get at is it's those details. It's those little things that actually do make a difference. That you actually do make the effort to really show that you've got a genuine interest. That you probably do have a genuine interest in the job, but it really shows it then. It's because at that early stage of application process, there's not this. There never has been a personal. Very rarely, do recruiters get the opportunity to meet candidates face to face. And even if you meet them at a careers fair, you've only got a short time to make a snap judgment. So you really want to make every word count when it's So,
and make all that research count as well, and focus your research in the right areas, I guess. So we are going to have to close there. That has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about the technical issues at the beginning. We've had huge interest in this session, so we will make sure that everybody who registered gets the link and is able to watch the session. And I know that myself and Lindsay will also be drawing on lots of things that you've said to share with students as well. So hugely useful. So Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just been so fascinating to actually get this insight, to find out exactly what's going on within the individual organisations, and that you are sending the same messages to graduates about how they can really sell their skills and their strengths. But also it's about that match, as you mentioned earlier as well. So I think this has been fantastic. Thank you so much indeed. And I'm sure all our students are echoing the same message, that they've really taken a lot from this. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.